time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, but why does it feel like some people accomplish so much more? Today, we're diving into the art of not wasting your time because, let's face it, we could all use a little help in that department.
Oh, you've got that right. It's like we blink and suddenly half the day is gone. So, what's the secret to making the most of our time?
Well, it's not so much a secret as it is a mindset shift. It's about being intentional with how we spend our hours and aligning our actions with our values and goals. But here's the thing, what constitutes a waste of time can vary dramatically from person to person.
That's an interesting point. So, how do we figure out what's truly valuable for us?
It starts with self-reflection. We need to take a step back and really think about what matters most to us. You know, there's this powerful question that can help put things into perspective. If I had only a year left to live, how would I want to spend my time? It's a bit morbid, sure, but it really cuts through the noise and helps us focus on what's truly important.
Wow, that's actually a pretty heavy question. But I can see how it would be effective. Have you ever tried answering it yourself?
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, it was eye-opening. It made me realize I was spending way too much time on things that didn't align with my core values. But here's the thing, it's not just about the big life decisions. It's also about those small, everyday choices we make. Do we spend our evening binge-watching Netflix or reading that book we've been meaning to get to? Do we scroll through social media during our lunch break or take a walk outside?
Right, those small choices can really add up over time. But I think it's important to note that it's not about being productive every single minute of the day. Rest and relaxation are crucial too, aren't they?
Absolutely. In fact, I'd argue that intentional rest is one of the most valuable ways we can spend our time. It's not a waste if it genuinely recharges us and helps us show up better in other areas of our life. The key word here is intentional. There's a big difference between mindlessly scrolling through social media for hours and consciously choosing to relax with a hobby we enjoy.
That's such an important distinction. So, how do we strike that balance between productivity and rest? Do you have any strategies that have worked for you?
Well, one technique that's been game-changing for me is time blocking. I schedule specific blocks of time for different tasks or activities, including leisure time. It helps me stay focused and ensures I'm making time for all the important areas of my life. What about you? Any time management tricks up your sleeve?
I've found that regular check ins with myself are really helpful. At the end of each week, I reflect on how I spent my time and whether it aligned with my priorities. It helps me course correct if I'm veering off track. Oh, and I also use the 2-minute rule. If a task will take less than 2 minutes to complete, I do it immediately rather than putting it off.
Oh, I love that 2-minute rule. It's amazing how many small tasks we can knock out that way, freeing up mental space for more important things. But what about when we're faced with larger, more daunting tasks? How do we avoid wasting time there?
That's where techniques like the Pomodoro method can be really helpful. You work in focused 25-minute bursts, followed by short breaks. It makes big tasks feel more manageable and helps maintain focus. Have you ever tried it?
I have, and it's surprisingly effective. And you know what? I think it ties into something we haven't discussed yet, the importance of taking breaks. Sometimes what feels like wasting time can actually be our brain's way of telling us we need a rest. Our brains aren't designed to focus intensely for hours on end. Taking regular breaks can actually improve our productivity and creativity in the long run.
That's so true. And it reminds me of something else we should touch on: the role of technology in all of this. Our devices can be incredible tools for productivity, but they can also be major time wasters. How do you manage that balance?
It's definitely a challenge. One thing that's been really effective for me is setting specific times to check email and social media rather than doing it constantly throughout the day. I've also started using app blockers during my focused work time to eliminate the temptation of distractions. What about you? Any strategies for managing technology use?
I've found that keeping my phone in another room when I'm trying to focus can make a big difference. Out of sight, out of mind, right? But I think it's also important to remember that technology isn't inherently bad. It's all about how we use it. There are so many great apps and tools out there that can actually help us manage our time more effectively.
That's a great point. It's not about demonizing technology, but about being intentional with how we use it. And I think that really brings us back to the core of what we're talking about, being intentional with our time in general. At the end of the day, not wasting time isn't about cramming our days full of productive activities or never allowing ourselves to relax. It's about being mindful of how we're spending our time and making sure it aligns with what truly matters to us.
Well said. It's about quality over quantity. Making sure the hours in our day are spent in ways that bring us closer to our goals, nurture our relationships, and contribute to our overall well-being. But how do we maintain that focus when life gets hectic?
I think one key is to regularly reassess our priorities. What's important to us might change as we go through different phases of life. Maybe at one point, career advancement was our top priority, but later, spending time with family becomes more important. We need to stay tuned into ourselves and adjust our time allocation accordingly.
That's such an important point. It's not about setting rigid rules and sticking to them forever. It's about staying flexible and continuously reassessing what's important to us. Do you have any strategies for staying in touch with your priorities?
Well, one thing I found helpful is keeping a journal. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, just a few minutes each day to jot down what I'm grateful for, what I accomplished, and what I'm looking forward to. It helps me stay connected to what's truly important in my life. Another practice that's been valuable is setting aside time each month to review my goals and see if my daily actions are aligning with them.
Those are great ideas. I think another aspect we should touch on is the importance of saying no. Sometimes, not wasting time means turning down opportunities or invitations that don't align with our priorities. It can be hard, but it's essential for protecting our time and energy.
Oh, you're so right about that. Learning to say no is a crucial skill. It's about recognizing that every time we say yes to something, we're implicitly saying no to something else. We only have so much time and energy, so we need to be selective about where we invest it. Have you found any effective ways to say no without feeling guilty?
It's definitely a work in progress, but I've found that being honest and direct is usually the best approach. I try to explain that while I appreciate the opportunity, it doesn't align with my current priorities or commitments. Most people are understanding if you're sincere and respectful.
That's a great approach. I've also found it helpful to offer an alternative when possible. For example, if I can't commit to a project right now, I might suggest someone else who could help or offer to contribute in a smaller way. It shows that you value the relationship or opportunity, even if you can't fully engage at the moment.
That's a great strategy. It maintains the connection while still protecting your time. So, as we start to wrap up, what would you say is the key takeaway for our listeners who want to make the most of their time?
I'd say it's about being intentional and self-aware. Take some time to reflect on what truly matters to you, and then make conscious choices about how you spend your time. And remember, it's okay to rest and have fun. Those things aren't a waste of time if they're genuinely recharging you and contributing to your overall well-being. Oh, and be kind to yourself in this process. We're all going to have days where we're not as productive as we'd like to be, and that's okay. It's about the overall pattern, not perfection.
Couldn't agree more. And I'd add, start small. Pick one area where you feel like you're wasting time and experiment with a new approach. Maybe it's using a timer when you're on social media or trying the Pomodoro technique for a big project. The key is to find what works for you through trial and error.
Those are great suggestions. And don't forget to communicate your goals with the people around you. If you're trying to be more intentional with your time, let your friends and family know. They can support you and maybe even join you in the effort. It's amazing how these small changes can ripple out and positively impact not just our lives, but the lives of those around us.
Well said. I think that's a great note to end on. Remember, your time is precious. Use it wisely, but also joyfully.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep making the most of every moment.